I was appointed by the Commander-in-Chief to this division, the UPDF Mountain Division, and eventually Commander of Operation Shujaa, way back in October 2022. Since then, up to today, I have been the Division Commander for the Mountain Division and Commander of Operation Shujaa, jointly done between the UPDF and the FRDC. When I came in 2022 in October, between October and November, my predecessor then, Lieutenant General now Kayanja, who was the division commander then, and the CLF then, the Commander Land Forces then, MK Muhozi, now the CDF, were the brains behind Operation Shujaa. And to assure you viewers, it was a huge challenge, it was a huge effort that the two commanders undertook, one as the Commander Land Forces and two as the Commander Mountain Division. It was through a lot of planning that Operation Shujaa was undertaken. What happened is that I found Operation Shujaa was already on gear. Operation Shujaa was already on course. And the two commanders, as I mentioned, now the CDF and now the CLF, took a lot of initiative that has made this operation successful up to today. Yes, what did I achieve and what has happened from then up to now? I should first talk of the first achievement. The first achievement was done from the beginning of the operation, when the UPDF Mountain Division, under the guidance of the then Commander Land Forces, full General now Muhoozi Kainerugaba, undertook the first hitting of Kambi-Ayua, where hundreds and hundreds of these ADF thugs were decimated and totally annihilated. It was a huge effort that sprang Operation Shujaa. It was a huge success that saw the ADF kicked out of the Semuliki region where Kambi-Ayua is, out of Tondoli, out of Lose, out of Njelube, out of Kambi-Ayua and the rest of these areas. And eventually the ADF spread to the general areas of Chabi, Kainama, Boga, and those areas of Zunguluka. And now these areas I've mentioned in Kainama formed the second phase of the operation, and Sector 2 therefore. It is that time that the operation was in its second phase, and Sector 2 that I was brought in. A lot was done. So many of these ADF thugs were killed. People who had been displaced started coming back to their homes in Kainama, in Boga, in Chabi, in Zunguluka, in those areas of Vido. That was the achievement that started coming into place after the first hitting of them, and the UPDF eventually, in conjunction with the FRDC, following them in those areas of Boga, Chabi. So phase 2 was ending and we were entering in phase 3, and that was when we entered into the third sector, which is Mwalika Valley. Mwalika Valley was a success. We killed so many of these ADF commanders. Big, big achievement. We rescued a lot of women and children, hundreds of women and children. We captured a lot of them, and those who defected were many. And eventually after that, we again dislodged them from Sector 3. That is in phase 3. And eventually they crossed to Sector 4, where we are today. In Sector 4, we continue to gain a lot of achievements. We continue to kill them. The people who had been displaced from their homes, right from Luna up to Commander, people continue coming back to their homes. Roads are now working. Vehicles move. Women and children have gone back to their homes, and education have begun. That is something that we think we have seen both right from the beginning of Operation Shujaa up to today. Suffice to say, there is no way you will single out the success or challenges of this operation from where I began. The success and challenges of Operation Shujaa begin right from the time it began up to the date that we are in today in phase 4. The main challenges that I'll talk here about Operation Shujaa has been the inadequacy of enough troops to cover the general area of operation. When I talk of inadequacy of troops, I'm talking about both the FARDC, the Congolese military, and the UPDF. The time that this operation was undertaken, there was an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, between the two governments and between the two militaries. The militaries would come out with what we call the status of forces agreement and partly the terms and conditions of services. Now, when these SOFAs are agreed upon, it spells out how many soldiers, how many troops, how many units should be brought into play. Now, once these units are not enough, and once you look at the vastness of the area, then you notice that with a little manpower, with a very few units, the operation becomes a difficulty. The other thing is the logistical aspect of the operation, supplying the soldiers, supplying logistical requirements, engaging the mobile troops and giving them feeding wherever they are. These are challenges that become a huge underdoing to this operation. So I think those challenges have also been an issue where it affected a lot of our operations. When you ask me about my most memorable moment, I'll talk about it in two ways. One, I'll talk about it in a negative aspect, and two, in a positive aspect. Negatively, the most memorable aspect of this, my operation, has been the time our innocent children were killed in Rubiria Secondary School in Pondwe, and the time the journalists, the British, the British tourists were killed in Queen Elizabeth National Park. That was so sad. One, to look at the kids who were burnt in the dormitories was so painful. I went in the morning. When I went and looked at those dead bodies, I was like, what is this? That is something that I will live with throughout my life. The second aspect has been the innocent killing by Njovu and his counterparts, the Kamusis, killing of those tourists in Queen Elizabeth National Park. I couldn't believe when I looked at those bodies. It was so painful to me. It was like I have done nothing to sort out this situation. And what else could I do? And that was the impotence by which we ensured ADF was cleared out of Mwalika Valley. We put a lot of emphasis because all these occurrences emanated from Mwalika Valley. We ensured Mwalika Valley was we got rid of the ADF in Mwalika Valley. Until today, as I talk, there is not a single disturbance of the ADF in Mwalika Valley. And that will come as an achievement, as I will talk on later on. That's as a negative aspect of the memories that I have in this operation for the time that I've spent. Positively, the positive aspect of my operation, one, has been the many killings of the commanders of ADF that I killed specifically in Mwalika. But the biggest of all, the memories, that something that I can pride of, was the killing of the commander, Muraro. Muraro was a daredevil. Muraro was a huge commander. Yes, we had other commanders, the Rubanzanas, the Rubangakenes. These other commanders we killed, so many of them. But Muraro was a big one. Muraro was a big one. And that's a memory that I'll keep in my mind. Since the killing of Muraro, dislodging Amigo, dislodging Abuakas from Mwalika Valley, those were achievements that I will live with in my entire life, positively. That's one of the things I could talk about.
So the killing of Muraro means what?
The killing of Muraro means we have reduced the ability of the ADF to fight. Therefore, they were forced to run out of Mwalika Valley. And that's why Mwalika Valley remained calm. That's why they ran out of Sector 2 in Kainama. That's why they ran out of Semuliki region. In Kambia Yua, they ran out of that. So the killing of Muraro was a huge achievement, specifically in Mwalika Valley. So I think it was quite something that would remain in my mind as some memories unforgettable. With the UPDF, it is all about tour of duty. I think if the attack in Rubiria and Pondwe, if that was an issue of my transfer, then it should have happened then. Why should it have waited up to today? And secondly, in the UPDF, there are so many instances in this country where people have been killed, vehicles burnt, schools have been torched. But that doesn't mean that it is something that should cost somebody his appointment or deployment. I still believe if that was the issue, then I should have left earlier than this. I should have left earlier than this, and maybe by today I would have been somewhere else. But all I can say is that the Commander-in-Chief, I call him the Alpha and Omega. He knows better who works where and when. So I think it's just the same part of the tour of duty that the UPDF has in its mechanisms, especially with the Commander-in-Chief, that determines that yes, General Dick has worked in this place, and it's time now for him to move on and try other areas. And anyway, if you follow carefully, where I'm being taken is a very serious deployment of the UPDF, very serious. You understand what South Sudan is. You understand what other issues happen in the northern part of South Sudan. So I think by taking me to Juba for this stabilization, it is all about peace for Africa. It's all about the African brotherhood. It's all about the Pan-Africanist tendency. That's why I think Muzei thinks I should go to Juba. And even the person who's coming to replace me is the same person who has undergone situations like I have. We've all been rotated. Look at General Kavuma now, who's in Somalia. He replaced me in Central Africa. He followed me in Somalia. I went to Somalia, he followed me in Somalia. Today, Richard Otto, who's coming to replace me, replaced me in Moroto. Today, he comes to replace me, and I am replacing him in South Sudan. So it's all about tour of duty. It's not about something that is bad. And we are not saying that the ADF has been incapacitated to the level that they may never do any other thing. God forbid, but we think we are very firm now on ground to stop the ADF from doing any other things. But should it happen, that I think should not cost somebody's appointment, because it is something that happens. People go, you civilians go on roads, get accidents and die. Does that make the end of life? It doesn't. So for us, it is all about the Commander-in-Chief who determines who works where and whom he thinks deems fit, and he deems fit to execute a certain specific role.